there's other things that the officers have to worry about as well. It's not just how to process the drunk driver that just killed 5 people. It's you dealing with processing the drunk driver that just killed 5 people.
Sure.
If I'm going to be that guinea pig that's going to throw it all out there and it helps 1 other cop or 2 other cops or 10 other cops, it's all worth it.
Sergeant, it is an honor to connect with you. Heard lots of good things from the crew over at Cops. Why don't we start there? What brings you out here?
So I got involved with Cops 6 or 7 years ago, I guess. Back in 2011, we had an officer, Kevin Will, that was killed, line of duty. I'd heard of Cops before that, didn't really know much about it. Going to Police Week and all the other things that came up as part of honoring Kevin, I got to know more about Cops. And as kind of the years went on, I think it was 3 years ago, I was introduced to the Trauma as a Law Enforcement class that some people convinced me to go to. And from then, it's kind of been really just kind of head first in with everything, doing what I can to help our Cops chapter.
So let's talk a little bit about the trauma that departments experience after the loss of an officer. How do you guide other officers through those times?
You know, I think that's really one of the hard parts. And the reason for it is so many officers don't want to admit that there's anything wrong.
Sure.
I was one of those guys. My dad retired from the Houston Police Department. He was one of those guys back then. So it's really about communication. It's really about trying to look out for these officers, especially some of the younger guys, where it seems to have a little bit more of an effect. The older guys hide it better, I think. Mm-hmm. So you really start to see things in the younger officers as these events happen and after the events happen. So I think communication is really the key, just trying to be talking to these guys and help understand what's going on with them. And then once you get some of that, you can really start to guide them in the right direction to get those guys the help that they need.
How do you get a guy to talk who society has told you're supposed to be a tough man who doesn't show cracks?
You know, I think that's probably the most difficult part. And for me, what I've started doing is I'm kind of trying to go the opposite way with it. So I do presentations about DWI and drug enforcement all over the country. And I've kind of turned that now into talking about officer trauma, talking about stress, talking about PTSD, and these other things. So I still do all my stuff about DWI and being a DRE. It's still very important to me. But there's other things that the officers have to worry about as well. It's not just how to process the drunk driver that just killed 5 people. It's you dealing with processing the drunk driver that just killed 5 people.
Sure.
So we spend a lot of time. I talk about it in our academy. I talk about when I do presentations. I'm going to talk about it today and tomorrow here at this conference. And I've kind of looked at it from a standpoint of if I'm going to be that guinea pig that's going to throw it all out there and it helps 1 other cop or 2 other cops or 10 other cops, it's all worth it.
No doubt. Let's talk a little bit about survivors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've been in a position where you guys have had to help survivors of officers who were killed in the line of duty. How do you begin?
It's tough. It's really tough because there's really 2 parts to it. One is you're dealing with the issues that you have with it from working that case. And I know I can talk personally about Kevin Will's case when Kevin was killed. You know, we'd never met his family before. Knew very little about his family, other than we knew his wife was pregnant when he was killed. Oh, as we started getting ready for the trial, because that's really where a lot of our focus was initially.
Sure.
Getting ready for trial, we had a year after Kevin was killed before we went to trial. Talking with his family, trying to get to know them a little bit better. In part, that was because it was going to help us with the trial. But the other part is there's so much stuff that they didn't know about what happened. There's things about that crash that they didn't know. There's things about the offender that they didn't know. And, you know, the media only puts out the stuff that's going to catch a headline, and not necessarily what's factual. So for us, it was really trying to help the family out with that. Now, since the trial, which was just a couple weeks after Police Week, the trial date was actually a week after the anniversary date of Kevin's death when we had this. So caused all kinds of other issues going on there. But since then, it's really been about just supporting them, supporting Alicia, supporting the kids. Kevin's son was born in August. He was killed in May. So, there's been things with that family that we've had to step in and do. Kevin's first day at kindergarten last year made national news. We had, 100 cops out there walking him to school.
Right.
Police
I remember
helicopter
seeing
flying
that.
overhead. I don't think the school was real happy about it, with all the extra attention on a first day of kindergarten, but it's something that kid deserved.
No doubt.
And we were there for him and did that. And we've tried to do that for, as many of the kids of our fallen officers as we can, trying to do the extra things for them, trying to be there for the spouses, for the parents, and kind of whatever we need to do.
A lot of great organizations out there in the
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit arena, but COPS is one that's really stood out and really helped a lot
Yes.
of people. Why do you believe in the foundation?
Well, it's built by the people that it affects. It's not a guy that came up with an idea of, hey, let's create this nonprofit and, let's do something that we think might help people. When you look at COPS from top to bottom, every person in the organization, or just about every person in the organization, has been involved in some kind of law enforcement trauma. A spouse, a sibling, a child, a parent, a coworker, in each of these different things. So the people that run this organization know better than anybody what it needs and what they need to do to support people. So you could pull somebody in off the street and might make a great CEO that's going to put a company together that'll do a great job making money, but is really going to help the people that it's intended to help. It's fundraising obviously is a big part of what COPS needs money, but it's not about the money, it's about the support. It's about taking care of the people that need it.
No doubt. Well, brother, it was an honor. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Guys, it's going to take you 2 seconds to hit the share button on this video, so thank you all for doing that. Thanks for supporting this great organization. God bless America.